Hello, I'm Bruna. Welcome to my channel. So, today we're going to talk about similarities between The Lord of the Rings and tarot archetypes. Just reminding you all, this is my interpretation about the characters and the cards. So, let's see. Hobbits, the Fool. Hobbits can also be represented by the pages, especially the Page of Wands, but mainly by the Fool for their young spirit, creativity, curiosity, and their desire to learn and explore the world, often in a fun way. They also love to go in search of adventures and the stories to tell. Hobbits are free spirits and carry their inner child with them, just like the fool, and therefore they keep their innocence. And that is why hobbits are one of the hardest people to corrupt in Middle Earth. Sometimes they can also be um, careless and a little irresponsible, just like the fool in reverse. Gandalf, the Hermit. Yes, Gandalf can be represented by more than one archetype, one of them being, for example, the magician. But for me, he represents much more the hermit, because that is his main role in the saga. When he enters Moria, his role is precisely to light the way in the midst of the darkness, just like the hermit. And it is there that he encounters the shadows in the form of the Balrog, which he needed to face and defeat in order to be enlightened, and turn himself into Gandalf the White, just like the hermit has the role of seeking enlightenment. Aragorn, the Emperor and the King of Swords. Everybody knows that Aragorn becomes the king in the end, which would make him the emperor. But I think that throughout the story, he has predominant characteristics of the King of Swords. His role is to care for the Fellowship and protect the ring bearer. But when he says to Frodo, I would have gone with you to the end, into the very fires of Mordor, it shows his integrity, honesty, ethics, and morals that he will protect until the end, without ever being corrupted. Just like the King of Swords, he carries this mission with him until the final battle. And coincidentally, Aragorn is the heir of the sword Narsil, also known as the sword that was broken. And as we know, it was broken in Isildur's battle against Sauron, when he cut off Sauron's finger and took the ring, and soon after Isildur was corrupted by it, which makes the symbolism of the broken sword even more interesting. This symbolism reminds me in this case of Excalibur, which granted the divine power to rule to whoever was worthy of it. Aragorn also refrained from continuing his lineage and from becoming the king for a long time, due to his fear of being corrupted by power, just as Isildur was. But when he receives the restored sword, he realizes he has this duty to seek justice, just as the King of Swords. Only at the end, when he had fulfilled his destiny of restoring honor among the world of men, does he accept the role of king, becoming the archetype of the emperor in his positive, uncorrupted aspect. Galadriel, the High Priestess and the Star. Galadriel would obviously have to be the High Priestess due to her mystery, her wisdom, her psychic powers, and intuition. Galadriel is able to sense the forces that can change the course of the future, and to understand people's hearts and minds. She invites others to hear their own intuition and the secrets within each of them. Like the High Priestess, she also carries the duality of light and shadow, When she's in her enlightened form, she is able to connect people to their purpose, but she also has her dark side, which obscures her wisdom and self control. The light of the Star of Eärendil would represent the major arcana of the star. Galadriel gives Frodo a phial containing the light of Eärendil, the elves' most beloved star, which was captured when reflected in the water of her fountain. When she gives it to Frodo, she tells him, "May it be a light to you in dark places, when all the other lights go out." Just like the major arcana of the star, Eärendil's light represents faith and hope for the future, and reconnection with purpose when one cannot see in the midst of darkness. It represents the light on the way for those in need. Elwyn, the strength. Elwyn can be represented by the Queens of Tarot in different situations, but I believe she is mainly the archetype of the strength. Courage is the main characteristic that links her with this archetype, in addition to her resilience and persistence, as Elwyn was never corrupted, resisting Grima's poison and fighting to defend her principles. She also overcame her fears of living in a cage, as she says, where she would feel powerless and controlled. Before the Battle of Helm's Deep, she reminds Merry to have courage for their friends. This has a lot to do with the archetype of strength, of not being afraid to go against what is imposed on you, and having courage for what you believe in, for a greater purpose. And that's how she managed to defeat the Witch King of Angmar and his beast. She also greatly admired Aragorn for his integrity and his sense of justice. Just like the strength archetype, we must seek to face our fears and tame the dark aspects we have within us. The Fall of Isengard, the Tower. The archetype of the tower can be seen in the Fall of Isengard. When the Ents decide to attack Isengard, this represents an important turning point in the battle for Middle-earth, changing the course of victory over the forces of evil. The tower represents a rupture capable of changing the course of all things in an unexpected way, just as happened with the fall of Isengard. It was a sudden change that occurred when Treebeard saw the forest being destroyed, and suddenly decided to attack Isengard. That moment forced him to change, just as it happens when we experience the tower. We are forced to change course and destroy that which was causing harm and obstruction to harmony, even if it takes us a long time to see it. Saruman, the Hierophant. Saruman can be associated with the Hierophant in his negative side. He was supposed to be the guardian of knowledge in Middle-earth, and a leader who would help maintain order and balance under divine powers, being the wisest of the wizards. But instead he used this power and knowledge for the dark side, representing a Hierophant in his corrupted form. Sauron, the Devil. And of course, Sauron is represented by the archetype of the devil. Just like in the symbolism of the devil, he wants to imprison all people under his power and enslave them, using them to achieve his goals. The devil is also linked to addictions, obsessions, and dependence. And as we know, the ring causes exactly this to the one who carries it, robbing their freedom, just as we see in the example of Gollum, completely obsessed and dependent on the ring. As we know, the ring was forged using all Sauron's evil, and has the enormous power to corrupt people. just as the devil also represents corruption and temptation. Hope you liked this video, and if you know another similarity between Lord of the Rings and the tarot, you can leave here in the comments.